Europe is riddled after the wave of powerful storms swept across the continent, bringing hurricane-force wind, torrential rain, hail and flooding from Spain to Poland. Authorities have confirmed dozens of fatalities and hundreds of injured, with hundreds of thousands of households remain without electricity. In France, Paris, hammered by heavy rain, is a lighting force to close up the metro lines and grounded flights to Charlotte, the airport. Streets and flying and boardwalks turned into rivers. An emergency crew reported more than 5,000 clouds overnight. Germany also brought to breath with a tornado like a wind North Rhine-Westphalia, ripping roofs to homes and uprooted trees. Rail service were suspended, highway blocked, and the school closed to official urged residents to stay indoors. It felt like the sky exploded, said Jens Fischer, with so-called lifted to overturned by sudden gusts. In Italy, Venice and Milan were swept by the flash floods, while the Rome enduring the violent hailstorms that shattered windows and damaged cars. Authorities warned to rising river levels in the north, in the fear of further flooding in the Po Valley. Spain forcing massive coastal swells and lightning storms, particularly in Barcelona and Valencia, with Poland and Czech Republic struggled with the power cuts and transportation shut doors after gale force winds across Central Europe. Airports across the continent suffered several days while thousands of travelers were stranded with the train station. Insurance provider estimates the damage could reach billions of euros after gale force winds across Central Europe. Airports across the continent suffered several days with thousands of Mediterranean said the storm system was following the coastal line by Mediterranean air called Atlantic Front, creating a volatile chain reaction across Europe. Scientists the climate change is making such extreme wide-reaching weather events increasingly frequent. The storm also suffered the European transport network. Rail service hit in Germany and France suffered severe disruption, while airport in Milan, Brussels and Prague experienced significant delay. Trucks were banned from the driving in some areas of Italy due to dangerous crosswinds. Meteorologists warn that climate change may be felt to intensify of this storm. We are seeing more frequent and violent weather events across Europe, said Dr. Hans Keller, a climate scientist in Berlin. European leaders pledged to carry off rapid relief force. France deployed military engineers to clear blocked roads, while Germany announced emergency funds to support reconstruction efforts. EU officials stressed to need a continental cooperation to deal with the climate-related disaster. For millions of people across Europe, this storm was not just a night to extreme weather, but another stark reminder of the continent's growing vulnerability to the fury of nature. Zaragoza, the capital of Spain, Aragon region, was hit by catastrophic flooding after continuous rainfall caused the Ebro River in these tributaries to burst their banks. According to the official sources, more than 118 millimeters of rainfall in 36 hours, a record for the last decade. Entire neighborhoods along the river were flooded, forcing hundreds of people to evacuate, and rescue teams used boats to reach residents who were trapped. Schools and businesses remained closed, and authorities converted the sports, hail, and temporary shelters for the families left homeless. At least 3 people were confirmed dead, and dozens of injured in the traffic incidents and building collapsing related to the floods. In the city center, cars floated along flooded boulevards, and underground parking lot and the sideway station were filled in water in a matter of minutes. Rail service in Aragon was suspended, and a highway connecting Zaragoza, Madrid, and Barcelona were closed after landslides buried sectors on the road. Local residents described the sense of apocalypse. In just half an hour, weather poured into the streets like a river. We lost everything in the first floor, said Maria Lopez, whose family home in the Actor districts was flooded. Farmers across Aragon have also suffered devastation. Losers flooded wheat fields, vineyards, and livestock found trajectory in month on harvest and livelihood. The economic damage is already estimated of tens of millions of euros. Insurance companies are prepared for the wave of insurance claims. Spanish Prime Minister Pedro Sanchez has promised immediate aid and emergency support, stressing that the community will be left without help. Powerful storms swept across France, caused destructive wind, torrential rain, and widespread flooding that left millions of people homeless. Authorities say it's one of the most severe weather events in the country in recent years. The Atlantic coast was hardest hit by the storm, with the wind gusts reaching 116 km/h in the Brittany and Normandy. Streets were littered, the fallen trees, roofs were torn off, houses and boats crashed into the harbour wall. It was one of the sea wanted to swallow the city, said fisherman Alain Dupont from the Saint Malo, describing the waves crashing about the pier. Paris was not spared either. Heavy rain overwhelmed the capital drainage system, flooding parts of the metro and forcing passengers at the west through the knee-deep water. Emergency service responded to more than 700 calls across the country in just 24 hours. Power outage affected nearly 500,000 people, particularly in the western region, and utility companies working around the clock to restore service.
Wow, I'm loot! Wow! Zie je de dood erom hebben? En dat is goed! Wow, de kans is daar!
Spain is reeling after a violent storm swept through the large part of the country, bringing torrential rain, violent wind, and sudden hailstorms that turned streets into a river overnight. The region of Madrid, Valencia, and Andalusia were among the hardest hit, as emergency service walked through the night and the rescue standard residents to clear blocked roads. Meteorologists described the event as one of the most intense autumn storms in recent years. It will the gusts exceeded 120 km/h in the capital areas. The Spanish weather agency issued red alert, warning cities to stay indoors where necessary travel. In Madrid, heavy flooding forced the closure of several metro stations and caused several traffic chaos. It was like a waterfall coming down the streets, said local resident Laura Gomez. Cars were flooding, trees were falling. It felt apocalyptic. In Valencia, firefighters reported the dozens of emergency calls, and a flash flood inundated in low-lying neighborhoods. Several European nations have been struck by a wave of violent hailstorm, leaving behind the scene of chaos, destruction, and disbelief. From northern Italy to southern Germany, Austria, and parts of France, residents awakened the road crowded in the ice, damaged vehicles, and crops destroyed it in the fields. Meteorologists say the storm were followed by the clash of moist Mediterranean air with a strong cold front from the northern Europe, creating a supercell condition. Hailstorms are some larger than a golf ball, pounding the city center and rural area alike. In Munich, cars were left with the shattered widespread, while the Bologna, Italy public transport was paralyzed. The hail-covered tram stack. Agriculture Associational report severe losses. Vineyard in Tuscany and orange in Austria suffered significant damage, for the farmers described the storm as worse than the case. One farmer near Verona lamented, "In 10 minutes we lost what we had worked for all year." Emergency services were inundated with calls. Dozens of injuries were reported, mainly from the falling hail hail and the raw accident caused by sudden ice flakes. Firefighters in Austria rescued motorists stranded on a highway blackened in ice, while the France-Frome Valley flooded added the crisis and a hail-blocked drains. Video shared widely online showed iconic city squares buried under a layer of ice, sparked disbelief among the viewers. Tourists caught on the storm described as apocalyptic in the like winter in the middle of summer. Experts warned that Europe have seen a rise in extreme hail events in recent years, while the climate change likely intensify with volatility. Scientists note that the winter air cold most may issue falling strong storm capable of production large destructive hail. The storm aftermath put in significant rain on Germany infrastructure. Rain service across the country was severely disrupted, with the national rain operation Deadbone reported massive delays in cancellation due to trees falling on tracks and damaged overhead lines. Passengers in the cities such as Berlin, Frankfurt and Munich faced long delays. A regional rail service in the most affected areas were completely suspended. Highways and autobahns were also affected, but many roads closed due to flooding and debris. In North Rhine-Westphalia, one of the worst affected regions, authority responds numerous to incidents related to the weather. Emergency service advised the drivers to avoid unnecessary travel, to be careful where the roads remain possible. Rescue teams have been deployed in some areas to assist stranded motorists, especially in low-lying regions where rising waters have flooded roads and bridges. Air traffic also have been severely affected, with the flights suspended or delayed at the major airports, including Frankfurt, Munich and Düsseldorf. Airline urged passengers to check flight situation information as a further cancellation and disruption were expected at the airports attempt to eliminate flight delays. Several airports in the northern Germany shut down to the dangerous wet conditions. In addition, its disrupted transportation, the storm caused significant damage to residential and commercial properties. In some towns, residents reported roof tine blew by strong winds, broken windows and damage from the heavy rain. Bavaria was hit a severe hailstorm that caused chaos in the town and villages across the region. The storm, which swept across southern Germany late in the evening, pelted town with a hailstorm the size of a golf ball, smashed windows, damaged cars and injured dozens of residents. In Munich, town and buses were halted as hail covered the streets, and traffic on the abandoned slowed the standstill under the impact of the side. In smaller towns, roofs were damaged and emergency service reported thousands of calls waiting with a few hours. Dozens of people were taken to hospital with cuts, burns and head injury caused by the flying debris in collapsing buildings. Witnesses described horrific scenes. The hail was so long that it's impossible to hear each other. Within minutes, our garden looked like it had snowed in summer. This is Thomas Sheldon, a resident of Augsburg. Video posted online showed cars covered in a layer of ice and trees stripped in their lives on the storm. Bavaria agriculture sector was severely affected. Vineyards in Francolina for fields in Helter. The large area of corn and wheat were destroyed in a matter of minutes. Farmers warned of crop losses that could reach hundreds of millions of euros. A sudden and severe hailstorm swept across southern Poland, leaving a scene of destruction in its wake and prompted urgent calls to help. The storm, which struck on Monday evening, battered town and villages with a hailstone the size of walnuts, smashing windows, damaged cars and distorted crops in the middle of the harvest season. Farmers in the Motopolska and Ponkampasa region reported catastrophic losses. In the 10 minutes, everything he had worked in the year was destroyed, said Poret Novak, a farmer from the near tunnel. The fields looking as someone had chopped them up with the knees. Agriculture representative estimated hundreds of hectares of corn, potatoes and orange have been destroyed, with the could lead higher food prices in the coming month. Residents described chaos and the hail-pounded roofs and a blanket drain caused sudden flooding in the city streets. Emergency service responded to hundreds of calls, and a fire crews worked through the night and cleared debris and secured damaged homes. Fortunately, no deaths were reported, although several people suffered minor injuries from the broken glass. Local authorities are assessing the damage with estimated to be tens of millions of euros. The Polish Meteorological Institute was warned for the Celtic cold. More storms in the coming days are unstoppable weather continue to prevail in Central Europe. Climatologists note in the frequency of such extreme weather events increasing. Hailstorms of this intensify used to be a rare phenomenon, but climate change is affecting weather conditions across the continent, said Dr. Marta Zelinska and the climatologist of University of Warsaw. For many, recovery will be long to difficult. We will build everything, but it seems that nature is tasting other more year, said resident Anna Kowalska, standing near the destroyed greenhouse. Germany was hit by a powerful and fast-moving storm that swept across the country overnight, leaving a trail of destruction from Bavaria to North Rhine-Westphalia. Strong winds exceeded 120 km/h, torrential rain, intense lightning strikes disrupted transport link, damaged infrastructure, and caused hundreds of emergency rescue operations. In Munich, streets remained flooded after hours of continuing rain. Trains stopped running, flights and French Joseph Strain airport were delayed, and a passenger forced traffic jams. It was terrible. The wind howled like a train and the rain poured down sideways, said Clara Hoffman, a local resident whose balcony was destroyed by the storm. Further north in Cologne and Düsseldorf, powerful gusts of winds uprooted trees and smashed cars. Emergency service responded to more than 2,000 calls, including flood in basements and damaged power lines. The German Meteorological Service issued the highest weather warning, urged residents to stay indoors. Sadly, at least 2 deaths have been reported, once in Bavaria where 3 fell on a car and another in Saxony due to flash flooding. Authority warning that river levels, particularly on the right and Elbe, remain dangerously high and continuously rainfall reserves. This week, a violent hailstorm struck southern Germany, hitting Bavaria and Baden-Württemberg with unprecedented force. Hailstorm the size of a golf ball in the same era's tennis ball pelted down from about 13 minutes, caused devastation damage rarely seen in the region. According to the German Weather Service, the storm rapidly developing of the Alps before the moving northward. Meteorologist Thomas Heath explained it was perfect storm combining high humidity, unstoppable air and strong temperature difference. He stated the hail crosses reached extreme high, generated massive destructive hailstorm. In Munich, neighboring and Augsburg, thousands of residents shared video of hail blanket their cities. Winter seen and flooded immediately out of place in early autumn. Roofs were destroyed, cars were dented beyond the reach, and trees stripped of hail and their leaves. It was a dented sound. Emergency response teams were dispatched to multiple districts as the roads were blocked by the flooding and debris.
Mira, José, esto...
Munich was hit by a sudden and violent hailstorm that turned a Bavarian capital into the city under siege. The storm, which broke out late in the evening, pelted the city with a hailstone the size of walnuts, in some areas even tennis balls. Windows were broken, roofs were punctured, the car looked and they have been shot at. Within minutes, the central boulevard, the side streets were covered with ice, quickly flooding due to cold swirls. Public transport came to standstill, trams and buses were stand halfway, and subway stations were flooded by torrential rain mixed with the hail. Munich airport temporarily suspended takeoff and landing, with the ground crews cleared the runway of ice. Emergency service reported thousands of calls in just few hours. Hospitals treated dozens of people for cuts, burns, and a head injury caused by fallen debris and broken glass. At least one death have been confirmed and several more people remain in serious conditions. Residents describe it by a terrifying moment when a storm hit. The noise was deafening, like stones falling from the sky, said Anja Fischer, whose apartment window was shattered in strapping. Madrid has been plunged into chaos after a powerful storm swept across the Spanish capital, bringing torrential rain, gale-force winds and flash flooding that left entire neighborhoods underwater. In just few hours, more than a month, was in rain, overwhelming drainage and transformed streets into fast-flowing rivers. Cars were swept away, metro stations flooded, and power lines collapsed, plunging parts of the city in darkness. It was terrified, said Lauza Fernandez, a shop assistant who was received from the standard car. The water rose so quickly, I thought I would make it out alive. Authorities confirmed several fatalities and dozens of injured. Hundreds of residents were evacuated from basements in low-lying homes, and emergency service working around the clock, often wading chest deep through the floodwaters. Public transportation suffered severe disruption. Madrid metro network were particularly shut, while train and buses forced long delays. Barras International Airport suspended flight for several hours, stranded passengers amid scenes of confusion. Tourists were also caught in the chaos, with landmarks like Puerta del Sol and Plaza Major submerged. Videos shared online showed hailstones bouncing across historic squares and water pouring down the steps of the Prada Museum. In surrounding region, farmland was badly hit. Vineyards and olive groves were inundated just weeks before harvest, threatening significant agricultural losers. Economists warned the storm financial toll could run into hundreds of millions of euros. Meteorologists explained that the storm was triggered by a clash between humid Mediterranean air cold Atlantic front intensified by record summer heat. Experts warn that climate change is increasing to frequency such extreme weather events across the Spain, already one of Europe's most climate vulnerable nations. A powerful storm has swept through Germany, caused widespread destruction and significant damage in several regions. The storm, which brought heavy rain, strong winds and flooding, affected both urban and rural areas, forcing authorities to issue numerous warnings and close major transportation routes. The northern and central parts of the country were hardest hit, with wind speed reaching 113 km per hour in some areas. Coastal region forces storm surge were led to temporarily close to parts of the shipping homes. In major cities like Hamburg and Bremen, the storm caused delays and cancellation of train and flights, while downed trees and damaged power lines left thousands of without electricity. Emergency service responded to hundreds of calls, cleared flooded basements, collapsing roofs and blocked roads. Firefighters worked around the clock to clear debris and rescue damaged buildings. Despite the chaos of fatalities, no were reported. although several people were injured by fallen branches and debris. In rural area, farmers reported significant damage to crops and livestock. Floodwaters swept through the agriculture fields, raising concerns about the impact of oncoming harvest season. Local authority in affected region is currently assessing the damage to preparing for possible financial assistance to support recovery efforts. The German Weather Service issued a severe weather warning ahead the storm, advised residents to avoid unnecessary travel to stay at home. Many schools were closed to safety reasons and a public event and cancelled. Meteorologists warn that extreme weather conditions in Germany are becoming more frequent in climate change and contributing an increasing in intensity of the storm and floods. This is not the first time Germany has had to deal with the extreme weather conditions, but the frequency and severity of such events rising concerns about the countries reiterate the further challenges. Authorities have urged citizens to take weather warnings seriously and ensure to their homes and advise protect to the storm and flooding. As the storm moves eastward, northward contact and also high alert to possible flooding the storm damage. The full extent of the damage in Germany is still by acid, but recovery force in expected to the several days is not weeks. The Spanish region of Valencia has been hit by a severe storm that has brought torrential rain, violent winds and severe flooding, leaving streets submerged and continues struggle to recover. Meteorologists say a system filled the most shoe by Mediterranean dumped more than 200 mm of rain in just 24 hours, one of the most intense downpour in decades. Entire neighborhoods in the city of Valencia were left underwater, and the residents were forced to wade through waist-deep water. Emergency service carried out hundreds of rescue, including drivers trapped in submerged cars and families evacuated from ground floor apartments. At least 4 fatalities have been confirmed, while dozens of people have been injured by falling debris and traffic incidents. The part of Valencia, one of the barest in Europe, was temporarily closed after crane that knocked down by strong winds disrupted shipments across the Mediterranean. Public transport was brought in a standstill, subway lines were suspended, flights were diverted, and rail services were cancelled throughout the region.
Ja, und das nennt man jetzt Klimawandel. Hitzeerwärmung, Erderwärmung ist, glaube ich, weit, weit entfernt.
A series of powerful hailstorms swept across Europe, causing chaos, destruction and dramatic scenes from Italy to Germany, France and Croatia. The storm intensified the collision of the most Mediterranean air and the cold front moving from the north to brought the Gulf-sized hailstorms, strong winds and torrential rain disrupted transport, agriculture and daily life in several countries. In northern Italy, the region in Lombardy and Emilia-Romagna were worst affected. A road turned wide and hailstorm blackened crosses in a minute, smashed car wide shift and destroyed vineyard and crops. It sounded like a shot of the roof, say Marco Rossi, a resident of Bologna, describing the definite noise of a car pounding its house. Meanwhile, in southern Germany, emergency service responded to hundreds of calls when powerful supercell storm hit Bavaria. Roofs were damaged, trees were uprooted and train service were temporarily suspended. In Munich, trams and buses were suspended after the ice blocked tracks. We haven't seen such large hailstorms in many years, said meteorologist Anna Weber of the German Meteorological Service. In France of the storm front caused chaos in a Rhode Alps region, where dramatic footage showed hail covering fields like snow.
To jest jakiś kataklizm.
Several people separate minor injuries from the blocking glass and the fallen branches. Rain traffic posted severe destruction, with the Dutch band warning delays could continue due to overnight repair work. Agriculture damage is extensive. Hail destroyed it was the vineyard, cornfield, and the orange. Local farmer John Mayer said the lost nearly his entire harvest in the 10 minutes of year work washed. Insurance companies estimated damage will exceed 100 million euros. Power outage occurred in several towns due to lightning strikes and hail damaging power lines. In Bavaria, some schools and public institutions remain closer to structure damage assessment and safety inspiration. Climate scientists point out in the phenomenon highlighting Europe's increasing vulnerability to extreme weather. Hailstones to magnitude were one of the rare, state climate scientist Dr. Catherine Hoffman, but his global warning poses the emergency in the atmospheric increasing making storms more intense. After the storm passed, the sky cleaned, a relative and surreal landscape is gleamed in the ice-shattered glass. The resident it was night in terror and astonishment. The chilling reminder of even in one of Europe's most developing countries of the power nature can strike without warning.